and Greg and Richard right here on Talking Red.
Hello and welcome to Talking Reds, a Nottingham Forest podcast hosted by myself, Greg Oram, and of course in Oklahoma, USA, it's Richard Spray with me. On today's panel, another couple of our stateside Forest fans. We welcome Ross Taylor and Steph Wilkinson. All right, last night, Nottingham Forest didn't just win at Sunderland. They imposed themselves on the game in a way you rarely see at this stage of the season. 5-0, but the scoreline only tells you part of it, because for 20 minutes in that first half, everything aligned. The press, the movement, the timing, and then in 6 ruthless minutes, the game was taken out of Sunderland's hands completely. You could feel it shift from tension to control, from control to belief. And that's the part that matters, because in a relegation fight, you're not just chasing points, you're searching for something to hold on to, something that tells you that this team has more. We're going to break it all down, what made it happen, what it means, and whether this is the moment that changes everything, because Forest entered the Stadium of Light and came alive to score 5.
Rolls it out short this time to Anderson, gets it back, there's the cross back post, yes! The header from Jesus at the back stick, Forest are ahead, it's 1-0 to the Reds after 16 minutes. Ross has dropped it straight at the feet of Wood, who gets it back here from Gibbs-White. Yeah! Down, Chris Wood on target for the first time since his return to the first team. Now from the corner of the penalty area, crosses deep, nodded down. Gibbs, yeah! 3-0! Gibbs-White makes it 3. He gets a 16th goal of the season, a 13th in the Premier League. He comes back, it's Igor Jesus! It's 4-0! After 36 minutes, Forest are all over Sunderland. They cannot cope with them. Jesus volleys in at the back post after yet another. Now for Dominguez, a one-you turn it. Anderson! 5-0! Elliot Anderson.
Thank you very much.
The Geordie at the Stadium of Light.
The intro's only this long when you score that many goals. You can't leave any of them out, I'm afraid. And I'm not going to lie, I'm going to just always love listening to Colin Fray reach the point where I think he really will explode. And last night, it was just a phenomenal game to be watching. And all you Forest fans listening and watching, we should absolutely celebrate these moments. If you're with us in the comments, hello and welcome. In the chat, let us know that you are here. Please do like and subscribe and join us as we will bring you updates on games, reviews, previews, and all Forest chat as much as possible. So you can listen on the podcast somewhere. And if you are doing so, thank you very much for being with us. Oh, God, such a big game last night, Richard. And, we knew that if we could get something out of it, a point would be great. 3 points would be crucial. And what a game. What did you make of it all, buddy? Let's have your general thoughts on what we saw.
Well, a couple of things. Firstly, I'm like, you just can't underscore the gravity. I mean, leading into it, we're just like, my goodness, this is a potentially turn the corner moment. Because if you get to that 42-point mark, for example, if we somehow beat Chelsea away, and this is the remarkable thing, first 2 seasons, we really struggle with away wins. And it's like the last 2 seasons, we've been absolutely dominant at times in away matches, which is just shocking. And all of the pieces that seemingly were problematic, not being able to defend set pieces, not being able to get anything off set pieces, not being able to score goals, getting carved up in the middle, just all of the pieces that we seemingly couldn't, shore up. They were there. They were evident. But it was funny because in my head, I was thinking about May 4th with my son the other day because of Star Wars. And I'm just like, what is this analogous to? And I'm like, this is like, we're Mandalorian. Forrest is the Mandalorian, right? And every week is a new job done. And then every week we get another little piece of Beskar that just adds armor and just creates us, puts us in position to battle, right? So I think that's kind of where we're at. And so it is just incredible joy. I mean, to your point, the pure elation of the crowd to see the away fans and just them jumping up, hugging each other. And I think we all understand what this really meant, just for not only continuing that momentum of winning or getting draws or just getting points in general, but just the belief now that's permeating every aspect of what we're doing as a team, which is fantastic.
This is the way.
This is the way.
Steph, great to have you back on with us. That beaming smile of yours. How did you feel after the game ended last night, and what are your thoughts on it?
Well, first, if this is the way, this way is going to give me a heart attack. I did not expect that result. I would have taken a draw. Take that point and just, put our heads down and keep going. So I want to say for the first half, it reminded me of the joys of last season. When we're riding in third week after week, we're on that winning streak, and being a Forest fan was just this amazing wave ride. And I felt that again for the first time this season yesterday. And I felt like things are actually, we've got a really good defense. We're now starting to see some action in the last third. We're actually finishing. We've had 8 goals in basically, 65 minutes. That is insanity for us, considering we couldn't buy a goal for most of the season. So I'm just riding high on a Saturday morning with too much caffeine, but I'm going to keep it going.
Amazing. And what about you, Ross? Have you felt that sea change? Because so much has gone against us off the pitch with the managers and other things as well. Vitor comes in, and Steph's right, isn't she, when she says this feels like there's been a turn. We're unbeaten in 8 games or something, and we're scoring goals now. And the rub of the green just seems to be falling Forest's way. I'm thinking of, Bednarek taking Woody's knee off, and we go, they go a man down. I mean, obviously it was definitely a red card, but those kind of things go in your favour. And other moments as well, like when we play Spurs away and we go 1-0 up, and then seconds later they hit the bar and stuff like that. Have you felt a bit of a sea change now towards Forest? Can you notice that?
Yeah, absolutely. And to take Richard's Star Wars reference a little further, it feels like there is a new hope. And I think the credit needs to go to Mr. Marinakis, or the trust of Mr. Marinakis, because he's obviously seen something there. And I think there was a true points per game case for retaining Dyche, but by bringing in Vitor, we all have now got genuinely fresh hope that includes not only safety in the Premier League, but a real belief that this season could be transformational in terms of going on to win Europa League and therefore accessing Champions League, which 6 or 7 weeks ago was unfathomable. We were going to limp through maybe to 38 points and hope it's enough, and that was probably it. So yeah, we have had a change. I do feel we've probably been a little fortunate in a couple of games. I mean, I think Porto away we could have lost 3-1, I think, easily, and similarly Villa, I think we probably took the point generously. So I mean, there's obviously a case here that some positive momentum is just all we can hope for, and the sky's the limit. So who knows?
I just put a graphic on there that the Athletic tweeted. Nottingham Forest now, since Vitor Pereira has come in, they have the most goals in the Premier League. No other side has scored more than them, Richard. Forest got 16. Obviously, when you score 4 and then you score 5, that completely tweaks that stat. But I think I was trying to think to myself, have we been threatening to batter someone like that? Because sometimes when you batter someone, sometimes it's easy to say, "Oh, we've been threatening to do that for a while." But the truth is, we actually haven't. We actually haven't been threatening to do it at all. So something seems to have changed. Can you put your finger on it, Rich?
I think the key to me, and one thing I want to throw out there too, keep in mind, we've got 5 clean sheets under him as well, and we only had 4 under Deitch, and that was his calling card, right? Was the defensive solidity. So the way that we're defending as well, because now we've got a +9 goal difference under him, which is phenomenal, and they can see what difference that's going to make too, right? In the stretch run when things are really tight. But to answer your question, I think it's in what Vitor says every single time he talks about his boys. He calls them his boys, and he says, they are quality players. I think he is constantly pounding that into their hearts and their minds that they need to recognize how good they are. And I think we've all, seen in sports the sort of concept of when someone's been down and they've not, like Kurt Warner, for example, in the NFL, someone who genuinely looked like they had a poor trajectory from a career standpoint, but Chris Wood, when they start to get someone who I think instills that confidence in who they are and their skill sets, and then utilizes them in a way that enhances that and focuses in on what their strengths are and how they construct the team, because we know he's a tactician. It just all, I think, coalesces into what you're seeing. You're seeing this team now genuinely feel like they're the team that was playing last season. They're really that team. That's not the aberration, is that we're not in that position this year in the league table, but in terms of who they are, how they function, how they work together, that's all coming back again. And I know we keep saying it, but it's starting to, it's arcing towards the same thing we saw when Nuno came in and that following season. And so I don't know what it is about Portuguese managers. I know there's a sort of like way about how they function as coaches and the way that they approach matches and the way they approach culture. But this is clearly, to me, it's trending that direction. And he's really putting himself positioned, to Ross's point. If he wins the Europa, there's no question, and we stay in the league, he is going to be the manager at the beginning of next season. There'll be no reason not to. But he's absolutely exponentially pushing himself up that track to have that opportunity, which none of us would have thought, right? We just thought he was a caretaker scenario. He's in here for the interim, and he's moving on in the offseason. We're going for Marco Silva or Oliver Glasner, like one of those. But I just don't see it now. I think he's just got the trust of the players. He's got the trust of people above him. And so it's remarkable.
And I think that, like,
sorry, Steph, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think this proves how important that cohesiveness with the squad means to the players that we have. I think that's what we really saw, like that trajectory, to use Richard's word again, with Nuno, was once he really, I think, gained the trust of the players and created that family. And I think that's what we were missing for so much of this year until now. And, you listen to Vitor, every press conference he has, he talks also about how much this is a family. And I think that, that's the linchpin to this team, because we all knew we had talent. You look at what this team looks like on paper, and we certainly have underperformed. And I think now we're starting to see what this team is really about.
I mean, I don't know if this is too easy a statement, but it feels like this team perform when the vibes, to use a buzzword at the moment that's around, when the vibes are positive and they're in a really good positive place. This side, it feels like that's when they're at their best. They need someone to believe in them and to allow them to play to their strengths. And under Nuno, I think you guys are definitely right. And we've talked about Vitor Pereira being, I don't want to call him a Nuno Mark II because that's disrespectful to Vitor, but they're from a similar mold. They've got a similar temperament, not just the fact they're Portuguese, but they've just got a similar kind of mentality. And so when you've been through the Ange Postecoglou experience where he was coming in and it was all wrong and he was trying to get them to do a certain thing, and obviously Deitch come in and really ruffled feathers with his style, we know from reports that it was really turning the players off. And, they were kind of trying to get on with the job of what they were being asked to do by him, not really enjoying it. And Deitch was quick to say, well, we were 13th in the form table under my tenure. I think under Vitor Pereira, I think we're top 2, aren't we? Or something like that in the form table. So it just goes to show that sometimes, and everyone knows I was really worried and not a fan of the idea when Sean Deitch got sacked. I can't rewrite history and say that I was supporting it, because I didn't. But it just goes to show when you've got a decision to make, sometimes the guys at the top with the big balls, they're the ones that make them for the betterment of the club. So when Vitor comes in with his calm nature, and he's even talked in press conferences about how he wants it, and he even says this is the way. He's been saying this is the way, and the players are buying into it because they enjoy what they are being asked to do, and so he's a unity character. He is very much a unity character. That Richard, you're absolutely right. Even if they don't win the Europa League, I still think actually maybe it's now time for that stability. We made a mistake in letting Nuno go in the chase of something else. Why are we trying to chase after something else? If it ain't broke, Mr. Marinakis, don't try and fix it. That's what I would say. What about you, Ross? I mean, let's think about the game. We go to the Stadium of Light off the back of beating Spurs 3-0, off the back of getting a lovely home point against Villa, who are a strong side, although they've just lost today. And then we dismantle Burnley in the second half. What did you really want from Forest going into this game? And how happy were you with the formation? You played Igor Jesus and Chris Wood from the start again.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, first of all, I was delighted. I think about 7 or 8 weeks ago, I was quite happy to take 8 0-0 draws to just get us over the line. So I've certainly changed my tune in terms of the new hope. I think the formation, I was kind of expecting him maybe to go with the original team from Burnley, give him another chance, because then he had the plan B. But I think in his credit, he recognised that the majority of the goodness, obviously, that came in the second half against Burnley should be rewarded with the start, and we would go aggressive from the get-go. As you say, we've sort of stumbled on this new formation that allows for Morgan to cut in from the left, and Jesus really does seem to be finding himself better as that 10. So all of those things set up well, and I was optimistic about the way he set the team. And I think the other thing about Vitor, to your point, Greg, about just the culture around the place, it feels way more inclusive, both in terms of squad minutes. It's not a surprise that there's more participation from Ryan Yates and our results have improved. I think also just the way that they seem to rotate within the game, you know, when to press, when to sit back. It just seems so much more informed, and it's participating in a good 15, 16, 17 players as part of one plan. And that was huge.
Steph, we start the game, and Forest, first couple of minutes, had the ball a little bit, and then Sunderland started to really take control a little bit. Were you worried at all that they were going to start to kind of impose themselves on Forest? I'm thinking they also had that shot from Riggs, didn't they, that Sells managed to smother. Was this a game that you thought we might end up slipping up in?
Yes. I mean, when we first started, I felt like that first 20 minutes, which we always say, like the first 20 minutes are the most important. I felt it was very chippy. I didn't really feel like we hadn't settled in yet. And I was really nervous that this is the moment where we're going to do something. We're going to, just miss the ball, give it up, and they're going to get a goal. And here we go again. Welcome to being a Forest fan. So I was nervous because I didn't feel like we really had a plan at that point. I was getting a little worried.
Rich, what did you think about the way Forest started to disrupt Sunderland? No, I mean, it was quite effective after that sort of first blitz they had when they had all that possession. What was it? Press? Individual work rate? What did you see from Forest that start to turn the tide?
Yeah, I think they retained their shape a little bit better. I think they recognized they were getting space in the middle, and whenever that happens, it starts to put us on the back foot and really puts pressure on that back line to just truly be completely locked in and for every millisecond. And so they started. I think they saw then try to make those adjustments. But to your point, that press. I mean, we talked about it in the preview as well. I think the formation that at least I liked. It was pretty much that, except it included Dominguez just because he's the king of the press, right? So I'm like, all right, let's just add even more, ratchet up the pressure even more. But I'm glad that's not what he did, because I thought Hutchinson was fantastic. I thought his kind of ascension in that within the course of that match to getting a little bit more confident, getting a little bit more brave with the ball at his feet, the way that they took that set piece on that first goal too. I mean, you can see, as Vitor alluded to after the fact, I think he was very proud of what they were doing with set pieces and the way that they executed those throughout the match, because we know that's been such a massive weakness. I mean, in every aspect on both ends of the pitch, like I was mentioning earlier, but to see Hutch take that ball, and I mean, we all know that's why he's there. He's there because he's got that craftiness with the ball at his feet, but he's also there because he can put a ball into the box with some nice spin and some trajectory that is very difficult for those defenders to deal with. And so, I mean, it was a lucky deflection. I'm sure we'll talk about the goal in a minute, but it's just the way that I think he started to impose himself a little bit more, because when he's on it, and we can see when his confidence is at optimum levels, I think he's going to be a phenomenal winger for us. I would say overall, I mean, even though he hasn't got the goals that Callum has, he's now, I think he's one of the top assist guys on the team now, along with Jesus, shockingly, at 4. But at the same time, he's starting to find himself in terms of how and I think goals will come for him too, because he's really good at cutting in and taking a shot. So I just think that was a huge turning point for us too, is when he started to kind of really ratchet up that, plus that pressure that was being manufactured from Wood and Morgan Gibbs-White and so forth. I think that was a huge best way to set up, as Ross alluded to, which was where to make them play out, and they're not good at that. So
D is with us. He says, I'm hungover, feel like death. Forrest, that's what you do to me. But seeing the 4 smiley faces of us has helped. Glad to hear it. Mark, thank you so much for the £2 in the pot donation. He says we have all the momentum going into the Villa game. Good morning to Ian Wigington, who's with us. He missed the game was stuck at work, watching on his phone in Canada. And Colin says, yeah, Raf was right about the pressing and Sunderland not being able to play against it. We talked about that in the pre-match and Raf's opposition report, which I also would like to say as well. Richard puts a lot of work into creating the graphics for that. So I know you don't like it.
I'm just the Ryan Yates, man. I'm the guy behind the guy. That's how I operate.
Ryan Yates of this podcast, he does all the hard work, all the link-up play, all the everything. But no, it's important. It's a team effort. But no, it's true, because they definitely struggled with the press. We got the first goal. Everyone knows that it was deflected in. Igor Jesus again at the back post, Richard. I'll just stick with you for the moment. I kind of didn't know what was going on with that goal. All of a sudden it was in. So if you make your own luck, don't you? I mean, I almost want to give that to Igor Jesus. I don't think they will.
Absolutely.
But I think they're going to class it as an own goal. Well, a great moment for him. I'm going to put this on screen while you're talking. Igor Jesus now has got goal contributions in all competitions this season. He's on 20, along with Victor Gyökeres and Robert Lewandowski. He's higher than the likes of Desiree Doué and Watkins and Antoine Griezmann, Ademola Lookman, Bukayo Saka. His all competition goal contributions have really been remarkable, goals and assists. And there he was at the back post, Richard.
Exactly, and I agree with you, because it's not like the goal that Morgan Rogers when we played Villa, where we got that own goal from Murillo. That was like a ball playing across the box. That clearly was an own goal, right? Because there was no option really for Morgan to put that in. So that felt more appropriate. But this one, I was like, yeah, it's kind of frustrating, because he struggled to get those Premier League goals. But that last goal that he got against Burnley, I think we said, this could be a turning point for him. We keep talking about these pivot points or these turning points. Maybe that's a confidence booster for him, because he has struggled to do it. And he has had 2 goals disallowed, not anything that he did incorrectly. Unfortunately, being in offside positions that kind of interfered with the goalkeeper is when those things got disallowed. But what's scary too about his performance level is the fact that, one, now he's finding a little bit of freedom in the position that he's been put in, which I give Raf credit, Forrest Mad 80 on X as well, a friend of Raf's, who all have been saying he should be in a 10. He feels like more of a 10. And I'm like, does he? I mean, I'm like, does he have the mobility? Does he have the agility? Does he have the vision? I'm like, I don't know, because in my mind, I'm thinking, Morgan Rogers, I'm thinking, Phil Foden, I'm thinking Morgan Gibbs-White, and so, but I think it works. And I think it's because he doesn't feel the pressure of having to be the guy like Chris Wood in that number 9 role. But it's also the fact that he's still young, and he has not even scratched the surface of being able to acclimate to this league. I mean, can you imagine with a full offseason under stability with a manager in a position that maybe suits him better, and what that means for him next season? Because I love the fact that he's also now finding the freedom to find spaces and positioning in the box to where it's not always about scoring, but it's about feeding somebody else. Because like we've said, we've been worried about goals on aggregate, but assists on aggregate too have been a concern, because Elanga was the assist guy, Morgan was the assist guy. And now we're sort of seeing this tide shift, which is phenomenal, because if you've got assist guys in, Morgan, you've got assist guys in Igor, you've got assist guys in Hutchinson. I mean, and then you have, the synergy between Wood and Jesus, coupled with Morgan now finding his feet as a goal scorer, at least this season. We'll see if that continues next season. I mean, goodness gracious. I mean, that makes me feel a lot more confident if we're going into a Champions League next year, if we do end up winning the Europa. I feel more confident that we can compete because we have a little bit more impact across that front line, because that's been the problem for the entire season. And someone put it in the chat too, I think it was Tricky Mickey. Sooner or later, you know, the chances were there. It was just about having that little extra edge to finish, like Steph mentioned, in that final third. So I'm excited for Igor. I've been a huge fan of his since the beginning he came in. I really thought he would be elite in the European competition. He's done that, but now he's starting to ascend. He's starting to, you know, pick up the pace, as it were. And what a perfect time to be doing that, because that's what we're going to need for the run-in that we have. 4 more games, you know, against, you know, some challenging opposition, some who are not in form, like Chelsea, like Newcastle. So there's plenty of opportunity on the table right now for him to continue doing what he's doing.
I think that he's been brilliant, and I want to celebrate the things that he has done for us. Too much talk at times through the season of things that he doesn't do or can't do. And actually, you look at his record, I think it's been remarkable. So he gets the goal with the assist from the defender, and that kind of relieved the tension, I think, for all of us. That was on something like 17 minutes. We get to the 31st minute, Ross, and all of a sudden it was the start of 6 minutes, a glorious 6 minutes. And I've had some glorious 6 minutes in my lifetime, I can tell you that much. but I tell you, this one topped a lot of them, Ross. It was. We talked about them not being able to cope with the press, and there were some stray passes. Alderete, their defender, was all over the place with his passing, but Chris Wood back in the team. What does Chris Wood give this team structurally that maybe doesn't always appear obvious? And how important is his role in creating that space for others and Igor Jesus and take us through the second goal? I mean, his work to get that touch in it made all the difference in Morgan's pass.
Yeah, I mean, you can't let me just not comment on the 6 minutes of joy for others too, that I'm sure, Greg, you give. So, you know, on the Chris Wood point, I think there's a couple of things that really were highlighted in that second goal. Exactly how elite he is his patience to wait for the press. It was his touch that basically intercepted for Morgan. I love that goal. It was so high quality. The weight of pass from Morgan first time into Chris Wood. And if you look back on that goal, he steps sideways rather than forward to hold the line towards the left back position to create extra space for himself. And then the shift of the first touch to allow for him to then step into that quick finish without the goalkeeper being able to set was just so classy. And so he obviously has that finishing prowess, but to your point about Jesus, he's getting so much more space when he's not the one who's occupying the 2 big lumping centre halves who are kicking him to shreds for minutes on end. So they really do complement each other, but having Wood back is just so huge for just leading the press and just knowing that when we get those chances, we're going to be ruthless again. And we really were in those magical 6 minutes.
Gibbs-White, Ross, that pass was absolutely fantastic because he could have had a shot. I thought he was going to shoot, but he picks Woody out. What on earth has happened to unlock this next level? Because we always know, Ross, that Morgan Gibbs-White is a fantastic player, but he's now broken through a ceiling, isn't he?
Yeah, and he often comes good around springtime. I don't know if folks have sort of noticed that in the last few seasons. They sort of use the US term. He's kind of a bit of a clutch player, I think, at this time of the season. That's why I brought him into my fantasy team for the last few weeks. So he is really a good one to rally at this point. And you can just see from his leadership as well, the way he spoke around Elliot Anderson's situation, just the way that he talks within the group. Clearly a mature bloke and, has all those leadership traits, albeit a little bit more silent than some. So I think he's really stepping into just the circumstances that are in play. The fact that someone had to step up and lead to get us through this relegation plight, but also seizing the opportunity that is, if we win 3 games of football, we're in the Champions League. And we don't have to win all 3. I mean, if we do enough in those 3. And that's a huge thing. I mean, they would be Miracle Men Part 2. And I'm sure when we talk about the Miracle Men Part 1, they had a tough season, I'm sure, that we all forget about. But the thing that matters most is the trophy on the wall. And they got a chance to go get it. And if we get it, it's because of Morgan Gibbs-White.
Yeah, he's going to be huge for us. Okay, we are at 2-0. We're going to go through a bit more detail on the Gibbs-White goal with Steph in just a moment, but it's time for some cheese.
The Cheese Trader, based on Grape Lane in York, is a cheese lover's paradise. Home to some wonderful specialty cheeses, relishes and chutneys, and also with a fantastic street food menu. Try their loaded fries or posh cheese on toast. It'll be the best you've ever had. Owned by Forest fan Stu Freestone, the Cheese Trader proudly sponsors Talking Reds. Quote Talking Reds every time to get 10% off your order. The Cheese Trader and Talking Reds, the perfect cheesy mix.
We are leading the cheese revolution. Check out the bio. Stu Freestone, our sponsor, will give you 10% off your order every time you quote Talking Reds. All right, Steph. So we're 2-0 up. We're in delirium. The 6 minutes is underway. We didn't know it was going to be so thrilling. But one thing that struck me this season, I'm sure you'd agree, is how bad we've been on set pieces, on our delivery, on our defending of them. But we've scoring from the set piece has been ridiculously hard. But last night something changed. Take us through your take on the third goal. Igor Jesus knocking it down for Gibbs-White to strike home.
Well, I think it started with Williams' cross, him basically getting the ball where it needed to be. When Jesus then heads that to Morgan Gibbs-White, what that made me or solidify for me is how much situational awareness Jesus has on the pitch. And I think one of the things when we're talking about the own goal at the beginning, that when I keep watching the replay of that goal, you can see he's deliberately heading the ball into the back of the head of the opposing player, knowing how it is going to basically ricochet into the net. If you actually watch that, he is not trying to head that into the net. So now when you're looking at him heading it to MGW for the goal, it's there's that situation awareness. I feel like both of them have now been given the space on the pitch in order to be able to basically make those decisions. And then you think about all of the interviews lately with Morgan, he's just talking about how he needs to paraphrase, center himself before he really starts to shoot. And I think this system and the situation awareness for both him and Jesus is really what led to that goal.
My wife said when I got home from watching the match with my dad, she'd watched it at home last 20 minutes or so and bits and pieces of it. She said Gibbs-White's goal was like a carbon copy of the goals he scored against Burnley. The way he's just watched it and hit it on the volley. And I said, yeah, I think you're right. And so, you're right in terms of Steph, Igor Jesus being spatially aware and Gibbs-White, but it looked like it was like a well-worked training ground routine. Others have talked about Milenkovic and his holding, who Milenkovic last night was back to being the Serbinator.
Yeah.
So it just goes to show, Steph, doesn't it, how crucial set pieces can be.
And I also think it really shows us how much Vitor is getting out of these players. Because if you look at our previous managers this season, every time we would talk about who have they made better on this squad. And now I think we're seeing that this system and Vitor and his team is basically making almost every player on our squad better. And so I think that, we're seeing that. And I think we're seeing one of the things that I wrote down is I felt like for the first time, we're starting to see actual patterns of play with this team that we hadn't been seeing all season. And I think so much of that is coming from dead balls and set pieces right now.
Yeah, and Colin says in the comments that they seem to use short corners to send it in from different angles. That's a good spot, Colin, because I agree with that. That seems to really work and was causing Sunderland all kinds of problems, Richard. But on Morgan Gibbs-White, can't let the conversation move on without you having an opportunity to chip in, because I know how much you love him. But I mean, the calls for him to now be on the plane to the World Cup, they were very loud after Sunday. They're screaming loud at the moment. Thomas Tuchel has to look at Morgan Gibbs-White. No player has scored more Premier League goals in 2026 than Morgan Gibbs-White. That's 10. His goals and contributions in all competitions, I think now is something like 16. That's including Europa League as well. Talisman is almost just doesn't do it justice, does it?
It doesn't. I mean, he is the linchpin to all that we do. I mean, and I think we've seen it when he's been down and he's not been playing to his level. the way the team functions, the belief within what we can execute and do, and the results we can get it just wanes. And I mean, Steph and I, Ross as well, because he's a fan of college football in the United States. When you have that quarterback, when you have that guy that I think commands the respect of the dressing room, when you have that guy that knows what he needs to do and he can provide the impact, because now he creates a fear factor. I mean, we had no fear factor for a large portion of the season. No one really worried about, oh, what are we going to do against Forest? Really, we just have to let them do what they've been doing, which is not scoring goals and being frail on set pieces, and we're going to win this game. At worst, we're going to draw. There was just no fear factor, and I think now by the back line being as strong as they are, and with him leading the line and setting the tone week after week, because now he's hitting that 7.5 to 8 out of 10 almost every single week now. It makes defensive team, or the defensive component of our opposition, have to constantly be considering where he's at. And that, to me, is a major asset, because you can't throw. I mean, I know I'm picking on Jordan Henderson. I've never been a fan of him anyway, but Jordan Henderson, what fear factor does Jordan? I mean, he's a different player. I get it. But you bring in players like that with that kind of impact. Even Eze is not showing that kind of impact this season. Foden is not showing that kind of impact this season. So you need players like that. Exactly. You need players like that when the game is cagey and it's close and tight, which we know there'll be matches like that in the World Cup, you need that difference maker in that moment who can ascend to that moment and play as he's been playing and create something for the team. And so, whereas before, I think his knock on him was he's just too focused on how he looks on the pitch, the aesthetics of his flicks and tricks, etc. That's pretty much gone.
Yeah.
Right. And when he does it, you can live with it more, because
it's
the way he's
area.
Exactly. He has really, I think, from a football, like Ross talked about Wood's football IQ, Steph's talking about the progression of Jesus' football IQ. Morgan's control over how he functions and how he impacts the game now is just, it's honestly, frankly, got, at least based off of current form, it's elite. So you just cannot ignore that. If you're Tuchel and you do that, all you're really saying is you don't care about winning the World Cup, because you have to have players like that in your squad in order to get that little extra edge against teams like Spain and France, who have some phenomenal athletes and some phenomenal impact players. So why not, and insert him into the equation, because it just makes sense. The things that I think he would knock him for before don't exist. At least they haven't the second half of the season, to Ross's point, since January. And so he's done everything humanly possible, and he's still a young player. He's still got multiple World Cups left in him too. So you get him in that squad and operating in that level along with Elliott, I think you really got something.
Well,
and he's versatile too. He's super versatile, playing wing and playing, multiple positions on the pitch. Sorry, Steph.
Oh, no, I was going to say, I was on here, a couple months ago, and I had basically given up on MGW. I was like, he should not be our captain. He is not bringing leadership to the pitch. I was basically done with him. Like, what a remarkable turnaround. I feel like he's actually stepped into that leadership role. I think under Pereira, he knows what that means for the team. And I think that he is embracing that leadership. And, he's my Tom Brady right now on the pitch, where he's going in and he's taking control of the match. He's driving, what our patterns of play have been recently. And he's really stepped into that leadership role. I think that's what's really made a difference for him.
Every time a World Cup comes around, and there's always a hoo-ha about the squads, certainly here in the UK, about who's going to make it. There's been wild cards that have been thrown in before. I wouldn't class Morgan as a wild card, by the way. I mean, I'm thinking of the Walcott experiment back in 2006. There's even been cries this time for putting Max Downman in after a couple of really good performances for Arsenal when he's 16 years old. He's got his whole life ahead of him. Why are we trying to put all that pressure on his shoulders? It wasn't right for Walcott. I don't think it'd be right for Downman. But Gibbs-White, one thing that is evident to me is that he's gone through that ceiling I mentioned, but it just looks like the maturity that has developed within him is really stark. Richard and you and I have had conversations, and you are his biggest fan. You might not like me saying this, but there was a conversation we had where you were almost at the end of your tether a little bit with him this season, before Christmas, definitely, because things weren't going right for Forest. I think we were all frustrated, and things weren't going right for Morgan Gibbs-White on the pitch. And so, yeah, we were frustrated. And those that were maybe not big Morgan fans were, well, yeah, this is what I've always told you. And those of us that have always raised him were really scratching our heads thinking, what is going on? We need him. But he has stepped up, whether that's because he's, he always looks so happy in his personal life, father of 2 now. I'm sure that matters off the pitch. And he's really taken that leadership mantle so seriously. And the way he spoke after being left out of the England squad last time, when he said, look, all I can do is control the controllables, which is me and how I play for Forest. And that's all I'm going to focus on. And what will be, will be. And I thought, you know what? That is exactly what we want to hear. And he loves Forest. I'm completely convinced that he loves Forest. Doesn't mean he's not going to leave at some point. But whilst he's here, he's been here for 4 years now. And he's been our most important player across those 4 years. So, Mr. Tuchel, you need to put him in your England squad, because if you don't, then you are letting down this country. And so we need him on the plane, because he is, as Andrew says in his comment at the end, is in the form of his life currently. Mm-hmm. So get him on that plane. Forest go 3-0 up with Gibbs-White. We're not done yet, Ross. We're not done yet, because we've been talking about Igor Jesus. And he gets his moment finally. What a finish that was, eh?
Yeah, it was a really good finish with the back stick. And I think it was Aina who had the initial shot that sort of spooned up. But yeah, and that ball was spinning. It was a tricky finish. It was a hard, well-placed volley. Keeper didn't really have much of a chance. So yeah, it was great to see. And he thoroughly deserved his goal. I think he got effectively 2 assists and a goal, Jesus, yesterday. So yeah, we've said a lot about all the goodness there, and to go in at halftime 4-0 up, it was just such a relief. It was a whole new set of emotions that we haven't really felt for a long time. So it was nice to sit and enjoy a halftime, because I can't remember the last time that happened.
I mean, Ross, when we think back to Sunday, after that first half, I was on the floor, because I was like, we had a really, really poor first half against Burnley, and look, that can happen, especially after you've, just come through a European game a few days before and so on. But the way they bounced back and showed that they're not going to take a bad half. It's not going to take a bad half to destroy the season. They're going to bounce back. Gibbs-White, we know, was the catalyst on that day. When we get to half-time last night and we're 4-0 up, what's going through your mind? Because we've all had the horror stories as a Forest fan. What was it you were hoping Forest would do coming out in the second half? It's very easy when you're 4-0 up, isn't it, to switch off?
Yeah, I mean, I guess kind of more of the same. I mean, it felt like structurally we were just better than where they were at. I was anticipating a couple of changes. Typically you would expect us to sort of tighten up over the 20, 30 minutes. They did that with Dominguez and Yates eventually. And then the 5th goal we kind of get as a sort of extra bonus on the counter, and it's certainly an extra bonus for Elliot Anderson. So, yeah, I mean, I think caution probably at halftime. I mean, it wasn't a park the bus type moment, but it was also you don't need to go and chase this anymore. And I think we're pretty effective when we allow teams to come onto us a little bit.
I wasn't expecting a change at halftime. I thought he'd come out, but he took Sangare off for Dominguez, and I think they were saying that there was maybe a precautionary reason because he had a little knock, and Dominguez has been fantastic, Steph. One player that I've been really impressed with, who quite early on in the second half had to go off as well, is Jer Cunha, because he's coming from Murillo, and I think everyone in the Forest fan base is absolutely delighted with Jer Cunha as a player. Is that a worry for you? I mean, no Murillo, no Jer Cunha potentially next week against Villa. Does that worry you with Morata having to come in? You can be calm.
Yes. My distrust for Morata is very well known. So, like in my notes watching, I was like, "Oh God, Cunha can't be hurt. Like, can we just patch up his shoulder and just keep him out there? Because like a injured body is better than Morata being on there, or 10 players is better than Morata being on there. So yeah, I'm worried. I'm hoping. I can't trust him. So then I think, what kind of formation are we going to play if we can't have, 4 at the back? And then obviously depending on who our opposition is, 3 at the back makes me really nervous too. So yeah, worried. And I think kind of transitions a little bit into how little Nets has played for us. I thought he had a good match. I was impressed by how much he was going after the ball, and where he just seemed to be everywhere I looked. He seemed to be when he was playing. So, that and I think obviously having Abbott on the bench hopefully we'll see him in, well, I don't know, not necessarily against Villa, but I'm nervous about it. I think that's a little bit of a weakness for us right now if Murillo's out and Cunha's out.
We don't know at this point if there's anything in the Jay Cunha injury that would keep him out of next week. There's still 5 days, 6 days or so until we play the first leg. But Richard, he's another composed young Brazilian centre back who is more mobile than you'd imagine for 6'6". He's very similar in certain ways to Murillo in terms of some of his play. It's almost like he's on the pitch, but you don't notice he's on the pitch. It's just a weird situation to have when you got in defenders in that way. I just don't feel anything other than calm when he's around. When Morato comes on, I'm with everyone else. I worry. He did okay last night when he came on. There was one errant pass, which made me scream at the TV, even though we were falling up. But are you particularly worried, Richard, about Jay Cunha missing? Because that would be Milenkovic plus Morato. I don't think they'd go to a back three, do you?
No, maybe. I mean, I can sort of see maybe doing it against Chelsea just because of the kind of personnel they offer, but and the kind of possession they're going to command. So maybe packing that back line and that midfield a little bit makes a little bit of sense. And we know we can operate with a wing backs system with Aina and Williams, but am I worried? Yeah, I mean, clearly, because it just takes that one mental lapse that we know Morato has, and unfortunately that started to become more than one per match. And that ultimately means that, in the Premier League, they can exploit that, especially against some of the teams we have coming up. These are not teams, we're not playing Burnley, no offense to Burnley, we're not playing Wolves, and so forth, where the kind of quality of the players is not going to hurt you as much. But when those moments happen, but when you're playing a Chelsea or playing a Newcastle or those kinds of teams, it potentially will happen. So that's the part. But I think the other piece with Jair, what I hope to see from him, because you're right, on a spectrum of players in that role, he's kind of just on our own team. He's kind of in between the two, right? He's got the height and somewhat of the physicality of a Milenkovic, not quite as thick as him, as strong as him. I'm sure he'll get there, but he's got some of the speed and the athleticism and the ability to. He also has pretty good vision on passing as well. Like you'll notice, like sometimes he'll roll out to the right and he's got a tight window where he's got a player coming at him, and then he sees that guy just for a split second in the middle. And he places it to, say, a Sangari or an Anderson or someone in the middle of the park. And so I like that aspect of him, too. I think he's got a lot. I mean, his ceiling is massive, right? I mean, I really think his ceiling is massive. And he's only going to get better learning from the likes of Milenkovic, even Murillo at this stage. Because to your point, I think what he offers that's closer in the spectrum to Milenkovic is that belief. You don't even know he's there. Right, because he's just so steady and solid every match. But what worries me a little bit, and I think he needs to address this, is maybe he can sacrifice a little bit of the pace, a little bit of the quickness, if he can get thicker, like upper body wise and lower body wise, so that he can withstand, I think, some more from the Premier League. So he's clearly gotten bigger, but I think he's still slight enough to, and I think he needs to do that, because now we've seen him have 2 knocks in this season when he's gotten the opportunity to be inserted into the lineup. Unfortunately, he goes a couple of games and then he's out again. And so he needs to solidify that, because all the talent in the world won't replace the fact that he can't stay on the pitch. And so we do that much
as well when he went down. I mean,
I know, but he looked uncomfortable. I mean, his facial expressions indicated yeah. And those things can happen. I've seen that happen plenty of times. Like I think you referenced possibly a collarbone, could be like an AC joint strain or something too, right? That whole section right there, which is really uncomfortable. And so hopefully he'll be fine. I think he'll be great. Another player that we can look forward to getting an off season and feeling like he can progress in terms of his understanding of the game, but also just in how he sets his body up to be able to withstand a full Premier League season. Because I think he will be used quite a bit, especially if Murillo goes, right? He's the logical choice to insert in there. Then I think he can still offer quite a bit, even though he's not exactly the same player that we've got in Murillo.
So we had a scare, Ross, when they bundled the ball in. VAR intervened. Any complaints from you? I mean, obviously, you're not going to complain as a Forest fan, but I guess from the decision itself, I think it was right to be ruled out. You too?
Yeah, I'm really going to come on and advocate for another team's goal. But I mean, in this instance, it felt justified that VAR intervened. I mean, I initially thought it was offside, but then it's where Milenkovic's foot was, and it was onside. And then he hooks Sells, and Sells is disadvantaged being able to leap. And I felt that Tyler Adams at Bournemouth fouled Sells for their corner goal, so I'm very protective of the goalkeeper anyway. So in that instance, it was definitely a foul, and they were right to intervene.
Yeah, he would have got to the ball, I think, had he not had his legs taken, and it meant that he couldn't get it. But we were saying offline, Steph, had that goal gone in and had it counted, then as Forest fans, forgive us, we were still a little bit worried, weren't we, that might have led to them getting their tails up a bit more.
I'm always worried. I think until the whistle blows at the very end of the match is when I actually can relax. Because I'm like, we have struggled for years at, I want to say, a little bit of that mental game that either it's like we have a hard time coming from behind, or if they score, is that going to then create this opportunity where we just collapse and they go on a run? And none of us would have been surprised if this ended with, us giving up, 6 goals and losing the match. So, I made that when we were talking earlier, I talked about how my husband at halftime was like, "Are you sure you want to watch the second half? You're up 4-0. I'm like, yeah, you don't know what it's like to be a Forest fan. Like, it's not over yet.
He lives in a dream world as a Liverpool fan. Maybe not this season, but
if I'm 4 as a Forest fan,
so sorry.
There's no way I'm turning it off. We might get another 4. You know what I mean? It's like, as much as like I'd be worried about the other team scoring, it's the Sunderland fans that were leaving since the third goal went in. We've seen that happen at the City Ground a few times this season. But
they started leaving at like the 35th minute of the first period.
Yeah, because that was when the 6 minutes of drama started.
Yeah,
but we got the 5th goal in the end. I mean, I think we game managed the second half pretty well. They did come at us, and fair play to Sunderland. They tried to play football still, and they've had a fantastic season. I got a lot of respect for Sunderland. Yeah. Fair play to them. But we got the 5th goal, and it was more than the cherry on top, Steph, because it was a goal for Elliot Anderson, the Geordie scoring at the Stadium of Light, and an emotional moment for him and for all Forest fans.
I mean, it was impossible for me not to tear up when he like looked up at the sky. He was thanking his mom for it. But what a mature kid when you think about everything that he's been going through, and basically the performance he put in last match and then this one. I couldn't have done it. And, I'm old enough to be his mother. So I think, just what a great job. And when you look at like how that goal came through, it was like a great pass from Nets to Williams to Taiwo. I thought Taiwo was going to shoot. He was probably shooting, but it ended up being a pass to Ando. And then, Elliot gets the goal. Like, couldn't have been, no one deserved it better in this match than him to finish us off.
The post-match interview that I've just popped on screen, where he says, "I know my mum would have been really proud, so I'm happy." I think we all know that he doesn't need to score goals for her to be proud, but because they're Geordies and because it was at Sunderland, I think she would have been extra proud and thrilled for certain. And so it was completely fitting that, 5-0 sounds better than 4-0, doesn't it? So we wanted that 5th goal, and it's made a big impact on the goal difference, because although we're as it stands, we're 8 points ahead of Wolves. I beg your pardon, of Spurs, who have kicked off against Wolves. I've got it on another screen. Yeah. It's 0-0 after 22 minutes, guys.
Okay. Thank you.
But I don't think it will come to goals now. I think points will be enough. But when you swing it like we've done so with the goals scored, I think it's absolutely fantastic. So, guys, Ross, I'll come to you. Does a result like this now genuinely shift belief in the dressing room in this relegation battle?
Oh, totally. I mean, I think goal difference is a pretty telling indicator generally anyway. And also, if you now look up the table, albeit that Newcastle got an extra game in hand, if we beat them, our goal difference now takes us above them. If all results were equal, and they lose their next game. So, that changes things too. If we're starting to look upwards versus down. So the goal difference swing in the last couple of weeks has really just added that little bit of extra relief to the system. As you've pulled up at the front, Opta has this 0.5% chance for relegation or so. Being Forest fans, we'll probably add an extra 0.5% because we can remember Yeovil and various other things. But it's a 1% chance, right? We got a 99% chance of being able to focus solely on the Europa League. So it's great times. And these are the good years. Remember, this is the thing I forget. Like, these are the good years. Remember those cold days in the shed in Yeovil? Like these are the good times.
Mate, I was at the National Hockey Stadium watching us play MK Dons. That was horrific. So, Richard, I mean, it's on the screen. Opta reckon we're, 0.65% are going down. That to me does feel generous. Are we able now to really go for it in the Europa League? I mean, this first leg's coming up on Thursday. We've got that cushion. I mean, look, clearly, if Spurs and West Ham both fail to win, or if they both lose, that puts us in a really strong position. But let's say that they both win, for example. Does that change the landscape of the semi-final very much for you? Or what is it you want Vitor to do?
I think Vitor said it yesterday. He said the job's not done. I mean, I think he's gonna keep them grounded. While we laud the fact that he has that kind of passion and has that love for the team and the fans as well. I mean, he continuously talks about them. I think he also keeps them focused on the task at hand. I do think it may give him an opportunity potentially to give a bit more minutes to starters to try to, again, solidify those, especially in that first leg. I think if you get 2-0 win or 3-1 win or something, and you get a pretty decent goal difference developed for that second leg, that's going to change quite a bit. So I think he will go strong, obviously, in that match. He may field exactly the same team we had yesterday. But I think there is some element to that. Does it manufacture a bit more pressure? I mean, I just don't think it'll change the mindset of the players and Vitor in any way, shape, or form if Wolves, don't pull it out, or if, Spurs win and West Ham wins. I think it's the same goal as what we're still doing what we're doing. We're controlling what we can control. We're putting in we're getting the results that we need to get in order to manufacture pressure on them. So I think at this stage, there's, nothing. There's still a little bit of pressure, but I think it's certainly shifted. I think the pendulum started to shift more onto those teams below us, as we were saying last week. It's pretty obvious and intuitive statement, but being the one that's being chased at the kind of differential that we now have, as Ross pointed out, both in terms of goal difference as well as the points differential for Spurs. I mean, where they're at, it just seems highly unlikely that they can win 3 games or 4 games out of the last 5 to even make it competitive, frankly. So, last 5 for them, including today. So, I don't think it changes much in terms of the mindset of how Vitor is going to approach every single game, but I think he could potentially have a little bit more pliability with what minutes he gives some of the starters.
What about the team that played last night, Steph? Do you feel like that's currently probably Forest's best 11, and is that the side that should go out in the first leg as well in that formation and style? Gibbs-White seems to really be flourishing, as on the left-hand side, it's kind of inverting a little bit, at times almost part of a front three. He's getting a lot of joy off that left flank. Is that the kind of team that you think we should be playing against Villa?
Yeah, I think we were playing like the 85th minute yesterday, and I was saying this needs to be who we put on the pitch and the formation that we put on the pitch on Thursday. I think we need to go into this first leg and just go out there extremely aggressive and go after it. I don't want to see us sitting back and then trying to catch up on the second leg. I think we really need to kind of continue this momentum. When we were talking a little bit earlier, and Ross, were about like, what is the dressing room like? They've got to now have the confidence that they can actually score. I mean, when you look at, basically we're like 9 goals within, the matter of like 75 minutes of playtime for us. I think we've got to go in there and keep that momentum going on Thursday, especially since we don't have anything until then. We've got to just go out there on our strongest front foot.
Yeah, we've got obviously the first game of the week, match week, done and dusted. It always feels better, as we've been saying, when you play on a Friday night and you get that win, and it's a convincing win, and then you can sit back and watch what the other teams are doing. It is still 0-0 between Wolves and Spurs. I haven't got eyes on the West Ham game at the moment. I think that's probably still 0-0 as well, or Richard would have been leaping up and telling me if they'd scored. So, look, I think for me personally, we've stumbled on by luck or by design, something that's really working. We all knew when Chris Wood was going to come back into the Forest team at the end of the season for the 6-7 games that we had him, that he could make a difference. And I thought last night he looked, again, as like another game had been under his belt. He was more up to speed. You know, he was really a massive part of why we won that game. So thrilled for him to get that goal. I mean, that finish shows what we've been missing with that instinctive striker. The ball comes into him quick. He quickly gets it out of his feet and he chips it over the keeper as he's coming out. I mean, that is just ice cold, and that's what we've been missing. But the fact that he's playing in the way he is and has allowed Igor Jesus, if we've talked about today, to play in the way he wants to play and can play, means that when we lose Callum Hudson-Odoi to an injury, all of a sudden, Gibbs-White's coming out onto the left-hand side because Bakwa hasn't filled the gap, and Ndoye isn't going to fill that gap. So we're trying something different out that we have possibly been asking for, and many have said, let's get Igor Jesus playing as that second striker in a sort of a 10 role. So however we've managed to find our way to it, we are doing it. And that, to me, has got to be the team that goes into the first leg against Aston Villa. So we'll be previewing that in the coming days. Going to ask the chat for their man of the match from yesterday. Who was the player that stood out for you? We don't normally do a man of the match, but I'll quickly try and grab get the guys' views. Steph, a name for you on man of the match from yesterday?
I'm going to say MGW. Like, he was everywhere. And on the second half, you know, they were really trying to shut him down by, you know, doubling up on him. And he was still maintaining control of the pitch and driving our play. Richard?
I'm going to go with Jesus. Yeah, I think he really was an impact player yesterday. You know, getting the assist, getting the, you know, certainly, I would say he got 2 goals. But, you know, as Steph outlined in her great explanation of that whole event. But, yeah, I would say he's my man in the match.
Anything different for you, Ross?
As a pub football centre-half, I have to give massive plaudits to Milenkovic. I thought it was his best performance of the season. I think he's best when he's grappling in a physical battle, you know, and Robbie is a bit of a throwback striker, and he handled him brilliantly. And I think that was the foundation from what all the good stuff upfield could come from. So Milenkovic.
Yeah, you've named the top 3. Gibbs-White got it. I'd probably lean towards Gibbs-White, but I think Igor Jesus would be a very close second, and Milenkovic was a colossus. Hutchinson, I thought, had a really good, certainly first half of football, his best in the Forest shirt as well. I enjoyed Luka Netz's appearance off the bench. I was really pleased that he was trusted with some minutes because he looked assured. And yeah, Tricky Mickey points out what a save from Matt Sells to keep the clean sheet. You know, just goes to show that he is a really good shot stopper. We always knew he was. Peter Welsh says Anderson. Colin Robinson says Igor Jesus. So yeah, it's good that there's more than just one name, isn't it? It shows that we're playing well. All right, guys, we're gonna end things there. Ross, going to come to you for your closing thoughts. I know you wanted to have a chat with us and make a mention of a good friend of yours, Mark.
Thanks, Greg. And thanks for putting this on screen. So delicate plea out there for our Talking Reds family. Everyone obviously has their own Forest stories. Over the last 30 years, Mark has been a huge part of mine. We used to travel up from Swindon to various points of the country. You know, we were at Elm Park, Reading, before the Medeski Stadium when Steve Chettle went in goal, and we took all the stops across to Upton Park to West Ham together. And Matt and Mark was diagnosed with MND last year, and obviously it's brought huge change upon him and his family. So there's some links out there here, specifically the handle on Instagram, which is Together with Mark 2026, for those to follow his story and learn more, and a link through to the Just Giving page to hopefully help him, you know, feel as supported as possible through this change and process. So if you can bring yourself to it, you know, donate a pint or donate the price of a match program to support a fellow Red, and honour to the club as well for this wonderful day they gave him in January to meet the players. So with you, Mark, and your family.
Well said, mate. So if you can dip in, we're going to put the links onto our social media channels. We're doing it again. We're asking Forest fans to come together and help support a fellow Red. If you can donate to help Mark and his family in his battle with MND, then I know you can, and I know you will. If you can, please do so. Steph, great to have you back on Talking Reds.
Thanks for having me.
To hear your dulcet tones. She says, anything you want to say to us before you depart?
I just want a match. What a team. Like, this is what we're here for. I think the one thing talking about Wood, I was really nervous that we were just hanging all of our hopes on staying up with him and his goal scoring. I think what I just didn't appreciate as much as I should have is just what his presence does for us and how much he's able to give. Just him being on the pitch gives opportunities to the rest of the team. And I just think of how amazing is Jesus going to be when he actually has an opportunity to mentor under him and see how what Wood is so good at and his clinical finishing, being able to just rub a little bit off on Jesus. And I think we've got another superstar on our squad.
Well said. Fantastic. Richard, over to you, my friend.
Well, real quick, we've got Mark in the comments. So, bless you, buddy. Grateful for Ross's, comments and his love for his friend. Clearly, it is an emotional thing, and Raf has dealt with MND as well. His mother passed from MND, and so, we're with you, Mark, all the way, buddy. So, all of us. So we'll definitely try to make this happen. We'll continue to share his story on the pod as well, so that we give him more of an opportunity to get support. So thank you, Ross, for that, and bless you, Mark. Another sad, unfortunate event that's going on in the state of Oklahoma, as you guys probably may or may not know. Right now is tornado season, which is always a very tenuous time for us here in the state. And so we did have an EF4 tornado yesterday. And so just prayers and thoughts go out to the people in Enid, Oklahoma, just north of where I live. There was about 40 homes that were either destroyed or damaged. And then there was about 10 people that were injured. So horrible situation. But, if anyone, is proclivity to pray or just think about those individuals and the needs that they might have, please do, because it's definitely a difficult thing. And it can happen so rapidly. And so it's such a crazy situation. In Oklahoma, weather's about the most schizophrenic you'll find. So, but yeah, just my heart goes out to them. It's a tough time for them.
Thanks to you. Thanks to all of you. Please do go ahead and hit like and subscribe. As Peter always kindly points out, it is free to do. Really appreciate everyone being in the chat. Last night, Forest went to the Stadium of Light. It was a battle that they needed to get something from. They battled for sure, and they got 5 goals, and they got 3 points. And I didn't think it could get any better than that. But this morning, my son, Orlando, played for his team, and they won 7-2. And he got a hat-trick and the Man of the Match award. So if Carlsberg even did weekends, it would probably be this one. So I'm dedicating this episode to my son Orlando for his hat trick and his Man of the Match performance. Come on, you Reds.
Come join Greg and Richard right here on Talking